From a Neanderthal flute to a creepy abandoned Russian airbase, and even a piece of the moon. Here are 10 of the most incredible things ever found in the middle of nowhere. Number 10. Neanderthal flute. Music is a part of life, and it's been a part of life since the dawn of time. Not too long ago, the oldest instrument in the world was found. It was discovered in the middle of nowhere in a spooky old cave deep in the wilderness of Slovenia, Europe. It happened back in the year 1995. The unusual musical instrument was found at the bottom of a Neanderthal fire pit made around 60,000 years ago. The instrument was crafted from the thigh bone of a cave bear, drilled with 3 holes, then sharpened at one end to create a mouthpiece. It's not exactly a flute, it's not exactly a whistle, but it's somewhere in the middle. It suggests that Neanderthals were way more into music than previously believed. Amazingly, this musical instrument is at least 10,000 years older than any of the oldest European flutes found that were made from bird bones by the first modern humans. It was made about 30,000 years before Neanderthals went extinct and human beings became the norm. Unfortunately, nobody knows what kind of sound the instrument made. We don't know what songs were sung with the instrument or if there were even more of them around. To date, this is the only one ever found. What do you think it sounded like? Number 9. A rare rock. A man in Taiwan discovered a mysterious stone on one of the country's most remote islands. It's called Orchid Island, and it's a significant distance away from the mainland, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Well, on one of the island's secluded beaches, the guy found a chunk of rock that has been valued at over $200,000. Only this wasn't a rock at all. It was a chunk of ambergris, also known as whale vomit. In some Eastern cultures, ambergris is actually used for potions and medicines and also as a spice. In the West, it's used to balance the scent of fine perfumes. Yep, whale vomit in your perfume. According to the Taiwan news, the man didn't quite know what the ambergris was when he found it. He thought it was a rock. It appeared totally black and had a sweet smell to it, which was obviously quite strange for a rock. He sent a piece of it to the National University of Kaohsiung to be tested. Later, the professor of life sciences confirmed the object to be whale puke, a type of substance secreted from the inside of sperm whales. Some people call it floating gold since it's worth so much money. The lucky guy, last we heard, was intending to use the solidified vomit to get rich. The most expensive piece of ambergris was found by a fisherman who was used to making less than $700 a month. The whale puke this guy found was worth $3.2 million. Number 8. World War II dog tag. In England, a 13-year-old boy named Max Hazelhurst was out for a hike in the remote Lake District when he made a rather shocking discovery. Max discovered the dog tag of an Australian veteran over 7 decades after it went missing during World War II. The young schoolboy was walking along when he saw a piece of metal sticking out from under a rock. He first thought it was just a dog collar, but when he picked it up and looked, he saw that it was inscribed with a name and a number. The tag said W.E. Wills. Eager to figure out who the dog tag once belonged to, Max and his mother searched for details on social media. Soon they were able to identify the owner. The dog tag had belonged to Private William Ernest Wills, an airman from Australia who had been stationed in Britain during the war. He worked at an airbase in the middle of nowhere about 2 miles, 3.2 kilometers from where the dog tag was discovered. The tag was built out of a British coin from 1917, the year in which the soldier was born. Unfortunately, Max and his mother found out the soldier had died in a car accident after returning from the war at only 43 years old. They did manage to make contact with the soldier's daughter and then helped to return the dog tag to her. Number 7. New bee species. In the middle of the Ocala National Forest, scientists with the Florida Museum of Natural History discovered the very first nest of a very rare bee species. Researchers were on their second field observation trip when they found a nest full of rare blue calamintha bees. They're protected under the Endangered Species Act. According to Jarrett Daniels with the museum, the scientists' goal is to keep the bees around for the foreseeable future. What's really fascinating is that the bee was only first described in 2011 and has only been located in 4 different places in the world. The main location where the bees live is a remote patch of land in the middle of Florida that was once a chain of islands in the prehistoric past. Today, species not found anywhere else in the country are still in this remote ecosystem. The bees aren't that different from other bees, other than their unusual underground nesting habits, as opposed to normal bees who make their hives in the trees. Save the bees! Oh, and if you're new to this channel, welcome! Thanks for checking us out. If you're liking the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe buttons if you haven't already. Number 6. The oldest rug in the world. Deep in the remote Altai mountains of Siberia, a rug was found. Yes, the oldest rug, like the one under your coffee table. While at first it might not seem all that incredible, you should know that it was actually the oldest rug known to man. It was excavated from a grave in 1948. Everything about this story is absolutely insane. The grave belonged to the Prince of Altai, and it was found 5,400 feet above sea level. Within his grave was a hand-knotted rug fashioned about 2,500 years ago, woven in the 5th century BC. The weaving techniques were found to be quite sophisticated for the time period, with scientists agreeing that the art of carpet weaving probably goes even further back, probably to at least 4,000 years ago. It's also interesting that the grave was already robbed of most of its possessions when archaeologists arrived at the site. The only thing grave robbers didn't take was the rug, because they probably hadn't seen it as being of much value. But because the thieves never covered up the hole that they dug into the grave, the rug ended up being frozen for thousands of years, leaving it protected for 25 centuries. The only reason the rug was found by archaeologists is because of the grave robbers, making it kind of ironic. As for who the Prince of Altai was, he was an old Scythian ruler. Not much else is known of him. Number 5. Waffle Rock. Waffle Rock is a strange geological feature in the middle of nowhere in West Virginia, and it's currently on display outside the visitor center at Jennings-Randolph Lake. And while it may just be a giant rock, it has actually baffled people for centuries since it was first discovered. The reason for this is the strange waffle-like pattern on the rock, making it look as though someone burned it with a waffle maker. But you don't want to pour your syrup all over it and eat it. It's a rock. But because of its strange markings, there have been a lot of conspiracy theorists who claim it actually had its origins in alien technology. However, that's not the case. According to the U.S. Corps of Engineers, the mysterious rock is made of deposits that go back 300 million years. As the continent of America was breaking up into what it is today, this sandstone block became folded over itself repeatedly, and over the millions of years, cracks filled with iron oxide. The iron oxide mixed with grains of sand, and a very hard material was formed in the pattern of a waffle. It was a process that took nearly 1/8 of the Earth's life. Number 4. Giant mammoth leg. On April 25th in Florida, a diver discovered something pretty amazing. While doing what he does best, diving, he found a giant mammoth bone at the bottom of a river in the middle of no man's land. Derek Demeter, the director of Seminole State College's Emile Buehler Perpetual Trust Planetarium, and his friend Henry Sadler, a Florida school teacher, both like to dive in their spare time. The pair weren't really looking for anything crazy, just whatever they could find in the Peace River. Everything was going as expected when, through the darkness of the murky water, Derek saw something that looked impressive. After quite a struggle, he managed to get the 4-foot, 1.2-meter artifact out of the water and onto the shore. It turned out to be a single leg bone of the giant Columbian mammoth that weighed 50 pounds, 23 kilograms. The leg bone has been estimated at around 100,000 years old, from a time when giant furry elephant creatures roamed Florida and it was a vast savanna grassland. When you uncover this fossil and realize there were these giant elephant-like creatures roaming around what was probably once a grassland in Florida, it gives you a sense of wonder for what it was like back in ancient times, Derek told the Orlando Sentinel. It's kind of like our way of time traveling. It makes your imagination go wild. The bone is a femur, and according to the Miami Herald, it's going to be kept in Sadler's classroom rather than a museum. Number 3. The strangest plant. The Hydnora plant has been called the strangest plant in the world. It's a type of parasitic plant that can be found only in Africa and Arabia, with a complete lack of leaves and a rather hideous appearance. But because these strange plants are found in the middle of nowhere and very far from civilization, they're almost never seen. It's one of the earliest parasitic plants to evolve and doesn't resemble any other flowering plant on Earth. It only flowers occasionally, and when it does, it comes out from under the ground with such force that it can actually damage infrastructure and rip right through pavement. The Hydnora really is a plant only found in the most remote places. There are 8 recognized species in total, though a lot of them were only recently identified, such as one that was discovered in a market back in 2011 in South Africa, and another in 2018 found deep in Arabia. Others are located far from civilization in places like Madagascar. Number 2. Secret Russian airbase. There's an abandoned airbase in Russia located in the absolute middle of nowhere, littered with abandoned fighter aircrafts. The base is at the very edge of Siberia, known as the Smirnica Air Base. It was first detected by Western intelligence in 1962, and in 1972, a U.S. reconnaissance satellite showed several long-range interceptors and transports stationed at the base. In the 1980s, the remote facility was home to an impressive new MiG-23 interceptor regiment. This means that there were tons of fighter planes that could have been scrambled to quickly streak across the ocean and be in Alaska in just minutes. In 1983, Korean Air Flight 007 was shot down by an Su-15 jet, and MiG-23 fighter crafts were scrambled from the airbase. Today, the place just sits eerily abandoned. Nothing is left except the MiG-23 fighters in their hangars, turning steadily to rust. Would you like to explore this place? Do you think it would be haunted? Number 1. Moon meteorite. Deep in the Sahara Desert, a piece of the moon was discovered. That's right, a literal piece of the moon. All those dimples and craters you see on the face of the moon with a telescope, well, they were put there by asteroids. And sometimes when an asteroid hits the moon, rocks get flung into space, and some of those rocks land on our planet. NWA 12691 is one of the biggest moon rocks ever found on the surface of the Earth, weighing nearly 30 pounds. It was originally discovered in the western Sahara and is one of 30 dug from the sand during the impressive haul. It was part of a meteorite shower, with the moon meteorites scattering across the isolated region of the Sahara. It has since gone on sale for $2.5 million. And this rock is pretty small compared to the moon itself. The biggest moon rock was brought back to Earth by Apollo astronauts. It was called Big Mully and weighed 26 pounds. It was found by Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke at Plum Crater at the moon's Descartes Highlands in 1972. Just imagine if you could get up to the moon with a pickaxe. You'd make an absolute fortune. Thanks for watching. What's the coolest thing you've ever found in the middle of nowhere? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe and come back soon for another wild video right here on American Eye.